Fern and Stark visit Frieren in the dungeon and reveal that one of the Demon Lord's lieutenants, Aura, has recently regained her power and has been waging war against the city for 28 years, leading both sides to open peace talks. However, Frieren warns from experience that demons are incapable of being reasoned with since they only learn human language as a way to deceive humans. Just as Frieren predicted, the demon peace envoy led by Lugna are simply there to trick the city into lowering its barrier so Aura can raise it with her army. However, one of his attendants, Draft, heads to the dungeon to assassinate Frieren, but she warns him that she is far more powerful than Aura. Draft ignores Frieren's warning and attacks her, but she easily kills him and escapes the dungeon. The city's Graf, Granat, becomes suspicious about Draft's disappearance and Frieren's escape, and confronts Lugna. With his plot exposed, Lugna captures Granat with the intention of forcing him to disable the city's barrier. Meanwhile, Fern and Stark agree to warn Granat about Lugna when they come across Frieren. Frieren refuses to help them against Lugna, confident that the two are strong enough to defeat him. Instead, Frieren leaves to confront Aura, who is waiting outside the city with her army. That night, Fern and Stark sneak into the keep and work together to seriously wound Lugna. With Granat badly injured, the two adventurers decide to rescue him and withdraw. As he heals his wound, Lugna finally realizes that Frieren is in the city. He recalls how Frieren is also nicknamed Frieren the Slayer due to killing more demons than anybody else in history. Outside the city, Frieren confronts Aura face to face. Fern and Stark manage to get Granat to safety in the town church, where he warns that Aura's trump card is a magic artifact called the Scales of Obedience, which measure the amount of mana she and opponent possesses. The one with the greater amount of mana can then dominate the loser, which is how she has created an army of puppets. Frieren destroys some of Aura's puppets, and seeing that she still has no understanding of humanity, concludes that she can kill her like a monster. Back in the city, Lugna and his assistant Lini ambush Fern and Stark. While the demons initially have the upper hand, Stark learns that Lini copied Eisen's fighting style from observing him in a battle, but lacks the strength to execute his moves with killing force, and uses that to his advantage to purposely take a blow from her axe, so he can land a killing blow on her. Fern seizes the initiative by taking advantage of her main strength of being able to cast her spells more quickly than even Frieren, eventually overwhelming Lugna's defenses and killing him. Mortally wounded Lugna is left to wonder how Fern is so powerful, until he comes to the realization that she had been suppressing her mana to look weaker than she actually is, which is considered a taboo among demon mages. Fern then finishes off Lugna. In a flashback to 1,000 years ago, Flammy comes across a destroyed elf village and finds Frieren the only survivor, having managed to kill the demon general attacking her. Flam decides to take Frieren on as her apprentice and teaches her how to indefinitely suppress her mana. She also teaches Frieren how to fight demons. Since demons are proud and self-confident in their own magic and are incapable of suppressing their own mana, Flammy explains that by suppressing their mana, they can trick demons into feeling a false sense of security where they can be destroyed in a surprise attack. Flam's last instruction to Frieren is to keep training and suppressing her mana and live in obscurity until she is powerful enough to defeat the Demon King. 1,000 years later, Himmel and his party track down Frieren and attempt to recruit her. Seeing that Himmel can instinctively sense her true power, Frieren decides to join them. In the present, Aura uses the Scales of Obedience, but is horrified when Frieren shows the true extent of her mana. Aura is dominated by Frieren, and she is forced to behead herself under Frieren's order. After paying proper respects to Aura's victims and enjoying Granat's hospitality, Frieren and her party continues on their journey, but plans to drop by at Orsurst, a large magical city in the northern lands, to get a first-class mage certification that will enable them to travel through the northern plateau. However, on the way, they get lost in a blizzard at the foot of the Schwer Mountains and Stark begins to suffer hypothermia. Fortunately, they find an emergency cabin and meet an elven monk named Kraft. Frieren and her party stay with Kraft inside the cabin for 6 months to ride out the winter. Kraft then confides in Frieren that he decided to worship the goddess because with all of his old friends dead and his accomplishments long forgotten, only she can remember his deeds and praise him when he finally goes to heaven. He then asks about Frieren's past, offering to praise her in the place of the goddess. This triggers a flashback where Hitta once said the exact same words to Frieren, and she declines Kraft's offer, stating somebody has already praised her. Kraft advises that Frieren cherish her friends and companions before parting ways with her and her party. On their way to Ossust, Frieren and her party stop by the Village of the Sword, the resting place of the legendary hero's sword, so that Frieren can fulfill her obligation to regularly clear out the monsters attracted by the sword. Stark sees the hero's sword still embedded in a stone, and is confused because he was told stories that Himmel successfully pulled the sword from the stone. Frieren remarks that Himmel failed at pulling the sword, but stories claimed otherwise after the fact. She then recalls how Himmel was not discouraged at all, simply saying that he'll prove himself a hero by defeating the Demon Lord without the sword. The party then heads to the next town, where Fern learns it is Stark's 18th birthday, so she asks him what gift he would like. Stark reveals that he is not used to getting presents because his warrior family never celebrated them, believing he was a failure too for being a coward, especially when he ran away when a monster attacked their village. Fern reassures him that she and Frieren will make sure he will not run away and helps him buy a silver bracelet. Upon returning to the inn, Frieren has prepared Hamburg steaks, which Eisen had always traditionally done on birthdays. This triggers a memory of his older brother Stoltz secretly cooking him Hamburg steak on his birthday, as well as being the person telling Stark to flee the village so that he can live. Stark then feels some closure, realizing that his brother truly loved him. Frieren rescues Sign, a local priest, from a swamp, and Sign returns the favor by curing Stark after he is bit by a poisonous snake. Sign's brother reveals that Sign has a natural talent for healing spells, and asks Frieren to push Sign into becoming an adventurer, a dream that he had held as a child but eventually lost his passion for, culminating in him turning down an invitation from his best friend 10 years ago. Frieren gains an interest in Sign because his apathy reminds her of the apathy she felt before Himmel recruited her. Wanting to save Sign from his own apathy, Frieren takes it upon herself to convince Sign to become an adventurer. Sign finally admits that the reason he did not leave the village was because he knew his brother turned down an opportunity to move to the Holy City so as not to separate Sign from his hometown. However, Sign's brother slaps him and points out that he never regretted his decisions, but Sign clearly does. This finally convinces Sign to join Frieren's party until he can find the whereabouts of his friend. After reaching the next town, Fern and Stark have a falling out after Stark fails to get a birthday present for Fern. Sign advises Fern that a young man like Stark cannot be expected to remember everything, and she should treat him less harshly and be more honest with her feelings. Fern tries to apologize to Stark, but he apologizes first, admitting that wanted to pick Fern's present together with her, but was too nervous to do so. As Stark buys a new bracelet for Fern, Frieren praises Sign for being a proper adult like Hitta. On the way to the next village, Frieren notes the bracelet Stark bought for Fern has a similar design to a ring Himmel once bought her. A flying monster suddenly attacks their wagon, and while Frieren manages to kill it, the ring is lost in the confusion. As the party focus on repairing the wagon, Sign notes that the design on the bracelet and ring is the mirrored lotus, which in the language of flowers symbolizes eternal love. Stark is embarrassed at buying something with such intimate connotations, but Fern does not mind. Frieren searches for her ring, and the merchant they are helping gives her a spell that can locate lost accessories. After Frieren recovers her ring, she recalls the time Himmel bought it for her. She picked out the ring initially, but in hindsight, Himmel knew about its hidden meaning, and he gracefully placed it on her finger as if proposing to her.